Welcome to Listen with Love, conversations about spiritual direction. I'm Suhail Stephen.
And I'm Mary Coswin.
Our hope is that this podcast deepens understanding, appreciation, and engagement with spiritual direction, encourages the vocation of spiritual directors, whether you're feeling drawn to this work, in training, already practicing, or helping others be formed in this ministry. And finally, our hope is that these conversations reflect how spiritual direction feels in our listening, pacing, questions, and focus on the experience of God. We want to see spiritual direction help individuals, communities, and the church flourish.
We do, and to that end, I even met with our bishop a couple of weeks ago, who's quite concerned that the people that he's meeting with are looking for a spiritual director. And I was able to ask a few people if they were interested in being directors for these, I guess it's women. And so I'll be following up with that because about a handful of people have said, and I didn't get an answer from you.
I gave you an answer.
You did?
Yes.
Oh.
It was a resounding yes.
It was a resounding yes, and I didn't hear it? Okay, Suhail, you're on the list.
Okay, thank you. Well, just so people understand, so the bishop in Winnipeg of the Catholic Church you're talking about, right?
Archbishop Murray Chatelain and I had a very nice conversation. Mm-hmm. And what I was hoping for was a conversation about training spiritual directors, but that doesn't seem to be something urgent to him right now. But he is very interested in getting spiritual directors for this group of women who are discerning their future. They're young women.
Well, thank you for putting some time and energy towards that important conversation with the bishop. That's wonderful.
Well, I think it was a service in a way, but it was also a delight to sit down and talk with him because he's new in the diocese. It comes from up north, where he was bishop for a number of years, and I had wanted to have a conversation with him.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is not related to that, but you had talked about this just before we started recording. We are actually recording this episode at a different time than we normally record. It's the afternoon. We have done every other recording session, if you will, in the morning. And today we're sitting here in the afternoon.
That's right. So I hope you don't need a nap.
It's a bit of the pot calling a kettle black, literally, because I called you the other day and you said you were about to go for a nap.
Yes. But no, I think we can be very bright because we love this topic.
Yes, that's right. Well, we'll see if our energy levels and enthusiasm is heightened or lowered in the afternoon hour. But it is a beautiful day, as you pointed out. The sun is shining. We have a light dusting of snow on the ground. And this room it's pretty luminescent with the sunlight in the afternoon.
Wall-to-wall windows.
Yeah. You know, when I came in, you have the Stations of the Cross in that hallway that leads to the chapel. And then on the other side, the other wall of the hallway is the stained glass. And I saw the sunlight coming through the stained glass, and it looked absolutely beautiful against that wall.
Isn't that gorgeous?
Yes.
Yes. Sometimes when I walk by and it's like that, I just want to stand there and let the colors and the light just embrace me. It's so beautiful.
Now, that stained glass is from the old chapel and the old monastery, right?
No, it's not. As a matter of fact, I always point that out to people when I give a tour, that this stained glass comes from the Sisters of Our Lady of the Mission, who had a house that they closed, and they put those stained glass windows, 12 panels, I think, into storage for about 10 plus years. Oh. And when they heard that we were building, they offered this to the organization that was doing the build.
Building the monastery.
Yes.
Wow.
And we're putting another set right at the far end. As you can see, the frame is made. The windows just have to go in.
I was going to ask you, because I noticed in this room wooden frames over the windows, so there's going to be stained glass here as well?
Yes, it's going to change the ambiance quite a bit.
Wow. Beautiful.
It'll be colored in here.
Yes. Well, you have to tell me one more thing before we get to the topic at hand, and that is because I alluded to the Stations of the Cross in the hallway on the way to the chapel, which I wish people maybe we'll take a picture and I'll post it or something. But where are those beautiful wooden carvings or sculptures from?
Well, the 14 Stations of the Cross were carved in Italy out of olive wood. So they're very light. They're very beautiful. There's no paint. It's just beautiful olive wood.
Wow. And that was in the old monastery?
It was in the old monastery along the two sides, in between the stained glass windows.
Yeah.
Yeah. And our prioress, who was responsible for the build of the old monastery, she spared no expense on the chapel. It wasn't ornate, but it was stately, beautiful. And she just felt that was important to do.
Yeah, I remember that chapel, and I actually went on retreat and was in the chapel one time at sundown when the light went through the stained glass. And I had my eyes closed for this particular time in the chapel for I don't know how long I was in there. And when I opened my eyes, it was actually at a very pivotal moment in my prayer, a very consoling moment. And so when I opened my eyes, I mean, it looked magical, honestly. It really was a spiritual experience in tandem with what was happening in my prayer. And I often think of that. Well, I think of it today because I saw the stained glass, the light through the stained glass on the wall. But I also know that the chapel, the old chapel for you, and the stained glass there was very drawing to you spiritually.
Oh, yes. As students, we would go to the chapel in the evening, and the sun was setting because those windows faced the west, and in the morning they faced the east.
Yeah.
And it was just stunning.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be singing and praying while the stained glass windows shone on us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, beauty, is an important pathway to the experience of God. And in some ways, that's very appropriate for the topic of spiritual direction, which I think is a beautiful ministry.
Which writer said, beauty will save your soul?
Yeah, I've heard that too.
That?
I don't know who said that.
We'll have to look it up.
Yeah. Well, in this penultimate episode of season 1, we are going to talk about what is an actual spiritual direction session involve, like kind of fleshing out some of the things we've talked about. We've kind of been at a very high level of, this is some of the vision, this is some of the foundations, these are some of the terms. And we thought that it would be good to kind of put it all together into what is actually happening in a session before, during, after. What are some of the actual concrete dynamics that are at work?
Yeah, I think this is a good topic to almost conclude our series with, because people who have not experienced spiritual direction and who are listening to this might wonder, what actually goes on there?
That's right, yeah.
Who says what?
That's
that kind
right.
of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, they may be feeling drawn or pulled by spiritual direction, but this is like getting a window into what it actually feels like, when you're sitting in the chair with a director, or indeed when you're a director sitting in the chair with a directee. So hopefully our conversation will put some meat on the bones of these big ideas we've been discussing. And to begin with, a very simple, practical question. How long is a spiritual direction appointment or session, whichever word you prefer, typically? What's the duration?
I usually had sessions for an hour.
Yeah.
Or 55 minutes, and then we would be wrapping it up.
That's right, yeah.
I think that's pretty standard. All my spiritual directors had session, with me were an hour.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, very similar. I probably think of it closer to 50 minutes with, a few minutes of banter and closing and padding or whatever on either side of the actual body of the session. So yeah, very similar. 15 minutes. I guess it's like you could think of it as setting aside an hour of time.
Yes.
Which of course includes a little bit of, hey, how are you? You know, catching up, and then the reverse of that on the way out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
What about in terms of frequency? How frequent are spiritual direction meetings with a director typically?
I would say to the people that came to me for direction that I would leave it up to them, but I would always recommend a regular and therefore monthly meeting.
Yeah.
After some years, it might turn out to be every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Therapy is different. Usually therapists see people every week. That's not typical of spiritual direction.
Yeah.
So I'd say, yes, monthly or every 6 weeks. Anything less than that, it's hard to maintain a momentum.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I see my director monthly, although I have met with a director during a sort of more significant or intense period for whatever reason, maybe twice a month. And I've had directees who, you know, if they're discerning a very big decision or if there's particular crisis that they're navigating in their life or even spiritual life specifically, I have met with directees more frequently than a monthly basis, sometimes twice a week. I think only in one case can I think of a person who I met with for a short period of time on a weekly basis. And that was because their life was really like a roller coaster. And it's a bit of I always feel like it's important for the directee to discern and to decide the frequency, because of course we benefit as directors in most cases by being paid for this. So to acknowledge that there is benefit to me, I think has tempered how often I would say, you know, please come and see me every week, you know, or every twice a month. But yeah, monthly is typically what I've done.
A couple of minutes ago, you said twice a week. Did
Oh, I must have meant twice a month.
Okay,
Yes.
I just wanted to be sure that
Twice a week is intense.
for both.
Yeah.
For both. As you say that, as we're talking about this, what about in between sessions? Have you ever had people want to talk on the phone or email you? What's your stance on that?
Great question. Well, I have often told directees that in between our appointments, they're most welcome to communicate with me. Like they can email me or, you know, text me or something. If they'd like me to pray for them about something in particular. I've often even said, you don't even have to let me know what it is you want me to pray for you, but just as a way to maintain connection and contact and to offer some kind of support, you know, in between the times we meet, please feel free to let me know if you'd like me to pray for you or if you want me to know something. And directees have taken me up on that offer. You know, I've had directees reach out and say, oh, I'm going through such and such this week, or next week is a big week for me. Can you please pray for me? And so that's like a way that I like to sort of maintain some ongoing connection in between our actual formal meeting times.
Yeah.
How about you?
I never encouraged that. Maybe that's not very generous. But at the end of each session, I would tell my directee, I'll pray for you this month.
Yeah.
So I tried to be, you know, faithful to that, and I knew it made a difference. But I can't think of more than one or two times that somebody contacted me. I really tried to keep it to the monthly.
To the meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
And what was the reason for that?
Probably.
Besides the lack of generosity, I mean. I'm just kidding.
Forgive me, directees. I think it was basically not to form a dependency.
Yeah.
And it's not a judgment on the part of myself against any one person. It was, and I maintained that for everybody.
Yeah.
And the I tried to keep that
Yeah.
as a relationship, a special kind of relationship.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a good dynamic to bear in mind, to not want to encourage or foster kind of a spirit of dependency, an unhealthy dynamic, right?
Yeah.
And it also, go ahead, please.
Well, I'm just thinking, to add to that in a positive way, I think the directees have what they need within themselves. And if they're praying, I trust that they're going to know what to do. But if anything terrible happened, I know that they would contact me.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, and I may let them know that. But to ask a question in between or share more of what was going on,
Yeah. Yes, that's a great point and clarifying for me. So yeah, I wouldn't typically initiate that communication or contact in between sessions, but I would leave it with the directee. If they wanted to contact me, for example, to pray for them about something or to accompany them in spirit, then please feel free to do so. But yeah, I don't contact directees in between sessions to say, hey, how's things going? Thinking of you, praying for you, falling asleep at night, wondering about your family, So I think that's a good thing. The other thing that comes to mind is that, although there are, I think, some common values and shared understandings in this work, the way that particular directors are going to flesh out those values in their practice is different. Based on their personality, based on their training, based on their stage of life, their capacity, all of their discernment, and
case in point.
Yeah, case in point. That's right. Based on the degrees of lack of generosity in their hearts,
Now he's teasing me.
I'm just kidding. Yeah. Have you ever had a spiritual direction appointment that exceeded the roughly 50-minute to 55-minute mark, or that was way less than that?
I haven't had an appointment that was way less, except there was one time when it seemed that the person just needed time alone. And so I suggested that the person go to the chapel or go for a walk because talking wasn't necessary. What they needed was space.
Yeah.
So I think that was maybe once, maybe twice that happened. Going overtime, yes.
Yeah.
When it seemed appropriate, it seemed necessary to keep the momentum going in the conversation. Person needed a little bit more attention. We needed a little more time to get into something or bring it to a close.
Yeah. I think my shortest ever appointment was probably 25 or 30 minutes, and it was for very similar reasons. This particular directee had never really experienced, I think, at a deep level, the love of God, although theorized and intellectualized it, right? And in this particular session, something clicked for them, and they felt themselves loved by God, maybe for the first time in like 40 or 50 years.
My.
And to the point that they said themselves, I need to go and walk in the park with this new experience that I'm having. Is that okay? And I looked at my watch and it was like 25 minutes or 30 minutes in. And bear in mind, they're paying for this, right? And so I said, well, if you feel like you'd like to do that, then by all means, please. But I am happy to sit with you here or whatever I said. And they said, no, I really need to go and walk around in the love of God or something like that. I can't remember how they said it. And so there we were. It finished in 25 minutes and 30 minutes because my work was done, But that idea of them needing to go and have some space and maybe some silence to savor or soak in the good consolation God was giving them.
Yeah, your work was done, but God's work and their work was not.
Correct.
And it wasn't so much work as just being in each other's presence.
So, roughly speaking, when you're thinking about, should I go for spiritual direction if you haven't, or, when you're thinking about spiritual direction, you're thinking about roughly a monthly appointment of about 50 or 55 minutes in duration, let's say an hour. What about location, Mary? Where does spiritual direction take place? Where do people meet for spiritual direction?
Well, I want to say anywhere, but I don't really mean that, because I think it's possible. It's possible that anywhere spiritual direction can take place. But most spiritual directors have a space that's set aside.
Yeah.
So that it's comfortable, it's private, there are no phones ringing, nobody's walking through the room. I was always lucky. I had an office. Part of it was where I did work on the computer and files and that kind of thing. But I always had part of it where there were just 2 chairs, a table with a candle, and a Bible, and some other things that I might use in spiritual direction references. Some directors meet in offices in a church, in their home. You're an example.
I don't meet. Oh, well, on Zoom I do.
Yes.
Yes, online, yes. Yeah.
But you do it in your home.
Yeah.
And do you see people individually, personally?
Yeah, so, well, just because you asked that, so one location increasingly that's happening is the digital location, the online or virtual space, and I think that really rose in popularity during COVID for obvious reasons. But, for the sake of convenience, especially for the directee in some cases, and especially if you're not in the same city as your director, the online option can be very preferable because you can meet with someone that you feel drawn to and not be bound by the limits of your geography, right?
And we are both examples of that.
Yes.
We both have directors who live far away.
That's right,
and we meet on Zoom.
Yeah. So that's one place direction happens, is online or virtually. For myself, once I left my previous position at a church where I had an office, this came up. Where do I meet with people, And so eventually I walked down the block of my street to I think it's fairly old, but an old Mennonite church. And these people do not know me from anybody. And I just said, this is who I am. This is what I do. Is there any way that I could rent a room, like a Sunday school room or something? Because most of the spaces are unused during the week for obvious reasons. And give you some rental money to meet with for spiritual direction. And they agreed.
Oh, really?
So literally at the end of my street, I walk down and I do have a little office there. It's not mine, so I sometimes have to go and redecorate the the furniture or whatever. But that's where I meet. It's on the 3rd floor of an old church building, a small, comfortable room, very sparse. But it works for me, and it's been a place I can host directees. But I think going back to your original thing, in some ways, spiritual direction can occur in any place, particularly if the place is conducive to confidentiality and conducive to a sense of focus or attention. Like you said, no phones ringing, no people interrupting. And the opposite of what I'm saying is once when a directee asked to meet me at Starbucks, this person was an 8 on the Enneagram, so very much having in mind the thing that they want to do, and it's going to happen. And for some silly reason, I agreed to it, and it was a disaster, at least for me, because I couldn't focus on what they were saying. There was just so much chatter and background noise, and I'll never do that again, obviously.
Yeah.
But that told me, this is what is not helpful in a location.
And it wasn't helpful for you. And you're half of the conversation, or a third, if God's part of it.
Yeah.
My director, whom I see on Zoom, was unable to meet in his home for one reason or another. And so he was at a coffee shop.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And he said, "Is this okay?" He told me ahead of time. And I said, yes. I don't know how he paid attention, but he paid attention perfectly.
Wow.
I didn't feel like I was revealing myself to the whole coffee shop. I don't know how he did it, but I mean,
Very
it's not
good.
regular. Usually
Yeah.
he's in a private space, but it can happen.
That's right. Yeah.
So maybe your directee was fine with it, but you weren't.
No,
Now
I
you know
wasn't.
that you would not do that.
I wasn't. Yeah. And I guess for directors, if you're not already in an environment like a church or a monastery where you have a ready-made access to a space, I've often suggested to people, well, you can go and see if there's a room in a library that you could reserve. You could go to a church that might be amenable to spiritual direction and ask if there's a space you could borrow. Or you could go to a random church that maybe doesn't have midweek activities, whose facilities might be available.
Yes.
I've had some students who have met with directees in parks, again, where it's confidential, but also conducive to focused attention,
Yes. I had a directee once on retreat, and she had experienced severe trauma. And it always happened when it was raining. And so this particular day that I was to meet with her, it was raining. And in Winnipeg, lots of mosquitoes. So she asked if we could go outside and have our session outside. So we were walking down the road, and it was raining, and there were mosquitoes. But it worked for her because she did not want to be inside, like trapped.
Yeah.
So, you just got to be ready for anything. But as you say, those other circumstances, that still holds a quiet, personal, private space.
What a great job you did, Mary, to accommodate that directee. And
Oh, I tell you, I got a lot of mosquito bites during that session.
You suffered as you listened.
Suffered for her. No, it was fine. It's what she needed.
Sometimes when I have a new directee, they ask this question, what can I do or what should I do to prepare for our time together, our session, our appointment? And a similar question is, what do directors do to prepare for the session or the appointment? So why don't we start with the first one? What would you say to people who are wondering, what should I do prior to going to spiritual direction to prepare?
Well, let me say, first of all, when I meet with someone who just is inquiring, I'll tell them, what we do in spiritual direction, the kinds of things that might come up, scripture passages, poetry, those kinds of things that we might use in spiritual direction. And then I talk about, keeping kind of track. If you're not journaling, at least mentally, kind of keep track of how things are going so that when the person agrees to begin spiritual direction, then they know they can come with whatever they've thought about in preparation. So that's what they bring, whatever thoughts, questions they have, if they've been praying on certain passages or they found something really took place that was very important to them, that's what they do. They think about that in preparation for coming.
Yeah. I've now here's my turn to show my lack of attention and care. Sometimes I'll say to directees, there's really nothing you need to do to prepare. You just show up and we will begin, and you may not know what you want to even focus on, but we'll just work with whatever you bring, and we'll trust that we're led to a significant place of exploration. If they still push me, like, okay, I hear what you're saying, I don't have to do anything, but really, Suhail, what do I need to do? Then I would say something similar to you. I would say, well, maybe you want to just pay attention to what feels significant in your life right now. Like what's the burning bush in the landscape of your life right now? And if they say, yeah, Suhail, okay, I'll do that. But more specifically, is there anything that I can do? Well, maybe you could just pay attention to what's happening in your life with God right now. But I find that most people who would have thought are happy to know there's nothing of homework they need to do.
Yeah, no homework.
Yeah,
No
that's right.
homework. And I'm glad you said that. Yeah, you don't need to do anything.
Yeah,
But if they want to, just give some thought to what's going on in your life.
yeah,
Yeah. And I myself, when I go for spiritual direction, I look at my journal, which I don't write in very often. I look at what my Lexio has been or a dream, and then I don't know what I bring.
yeah.
You know,
that's
and
right.
I'll say that. I don't know where to start.
Yeah,
Or I'll say, I had a dream. And he usually says, tell me about it. And we go from there.
That's
It might
right.
not be significant. It might be.
yeah. I sometimes spend too much time wondering what should I really focus on with my director. I don't feel that anxiety with directees, but I think it's because I want to make the most of the time or something. And so I'm trying. I would say I'm living a fairly self-reflective and aware life. But I often, like you, I often don't know what of the many things that is catching my attention should I begin with and focus on.
Yes, you've got this captive audience. You're a director, and you want to make the most of it.
Yes.
You want to bring the most substantial thing that will change your life.
That's right. Yeah. So this is a good word as well for maybe especially for directors who are going to direction is, you can trust that amidst the collection of things that you're aware of, God will lead you and lead your director to the thing to focus on.
Yes.
Right.
And that leads me to think about how a session begins. That what helps is that the director often begins with silence. And the invitation to simply be and let something arise. And that's where we count on the Holy Spirit to bring something to mind.
Yes.
And my director was doing this, but hasn't been doing it for a while. He would show a picture.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like Visio Divina, where it's not so much the word as the image that speaks to you. And in silence, looking at that picture might evoke something. And after maybe 30 seconds or a minute, then you can begin to share.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I have tried and experimented with various modes of beginning. When I first started spiritual direction, I used to always pray for the directee. And then sometimes I would read, a portion of the psalm, like in the appointed lectionary readings or something, and then give them some silence, and say the silence is meant to be practical, like to help you catch your breath, to be present to this time and space. But the silence can also help you to become aware of God and the love of God here. It can also help clarify how you want to begin. And then we would sit in silence, and then the directee would start with whatever. Yes. These days, and largely I think from the influence of my previous director, I just invite the directee into silence. I don't pray for them. And part of that is because now, having done this for so long, I'm, and as you know, with my changing relationship with words and prayer, I just don't know exactly what to say. So I just invite the directee and myself into silence, and then invite them to break it whenever they're ready and begin with whatever they like. And I've had students who do, some breath work, some breathing exercises. They share a reading, lighting a candle. There's so many ways to begin. But I think for me, what I often try to encourage at least my students in, is to have that moment of silence is one of the most critical things, because it signals that we're making a shift from normal conversation into spiritual direction. And I think it is in the silence that people do find that inner clarity or some kind of way of beginning, And it also empowers them, saying, you're the one who has the keys to this conversation.
Yes. Yeah, this is your agenda.
That's right, yes.
Your agenda, not the director's.
Yeah.
One thing that we miss saying, and we're implying it, is that you don't just sit down and be silent.
That's right.
Usually there's a little bit of conversation, how was the weather if there's a storm outside?
Yeah.
Or, glad to see you made it. Or somebody will say, I'm sorry I'm a few minutes late.
Yes.
And then you talk about whatever it was that kept the person.
That's right.
Or it's just a little chit chat.
That's right. Yeah.
And then there's the invitation to
Yeah.
whatever, look at a picture or just be
right.
silent.
Yeah, I often think, the first 5 minutes is kind of banter, catching up, whatever it is, just getting comfortable with one another again. Not to say there's discomfort, but just transitioning into this moment. And then I'll often say, well, do you feel ready to begin now? And that's kind of my little phrase to transition them and to invite them into silence,
Yes.
But yeah, it would be I think it would be a little inhumane to say, okay, let's begin with silence before I've even said hi or,
Yes.
How are you or something.
Just didn't want that to pass by
good point. Good point.
without saying it. And another thing about the silence is that the person coming for direction breaks the silence.
Yes.
And it could be longer than the director expects, or it could be shorter, but it's up to the directee whenever that person is ready.
What does the director do to prepare?
Oh, hard question. Many
Tell
times.
me the truth, Mary.
Yeah, the truth. Many times I was so busy that I didn't really spend substantial time preparing for a session. I would look at my calendar the day before. I would know that person is coming, and I might pray for them the night before. And think of them in the morning. And then really, to be honest, I didn't have a lot to prepare. I might try to remember our conversation. I never took notes.
Yeah.
And maybe that was not a good thing, but excuse me. I would recall the atmosphere of the last meeting and what we had said, what the other person was going through or sharing. And that was about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then in between, I would say, God, come to my assistance.
That's right.
Really?
That's right. Well, I typically wake up at 5 a.m. on the day I'm meeting with a directee. I spend a couple hours praying for them and reviewing my previous notes. I skip breakfast.
I think you're lying. You had such a serious look on your face, and I thought, I don't think this is...
Oh, man. I was going to see how far I could go with those sort of ascetic practices before you caught on.
I know you're a good man, and you're a good spiritual director, but I don't believe what you said.
Well, I think it's funny that we're talking about this because the way that I want to be prepared and want to prepare is different than typically how it is. The way that I would want to prepare would be, I think these days, to take at least 5 to 10 minutes prior to a meeting. I do take notes, so to review the notes. I take notes after the session, not during the sessions. I know some people do it during, and that's fine. But to review the past notes, to sit in silence myself for a minute or two, and then to begin, Now, like you, my life with 2 young kids under the age of 8 and blah, 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 in some ways, that's just the stage of life that I'm in. Life is, well, it moves fast. And so, yeah, usually these days it's more like 5 minutes before a session. And if it's in person, it's largely focused on just making sure the space is set up properly and things look hospitable, making sure the light is turned on, right? And then with Zoom, making sure the microphone is working, making sure the camera is on. In other words, it's a lot of very practical things.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm also trying to live my life in a certain way that disposes me to be a spiritual director. So while I may not be super intentional prior to a session, my practices of prayer and silence and Sabbath and see, like there's a number of things that I've tried to embed in my life that I love embedding in my life that I think dispose me to sit as a spiritual director, even if I don't have the luxury of 10 minutes of silence and contemplation before a session, if that makes sense.
You're saying your life prepares you.
Yes.
The quality of your life is
Yes.
preparing you to receive somebody.
Yes, that's
And
right.
I think that's where, again, the director is exercising hospitality. So to take the phone off the hook, or see, phone off the hook. Who has a landline?
Take your rotary phone.
Or turn it off. The candle, the lamp, not be running around when the person enters, and that I'm speaking of a personal, one-to-one, face-to-face conversation. That prepare to welcome the person into your space, a quiet,
That's right.
calm
Yeah.
space.
I have two great stories to tell you about how not to prepare for a spiritual direction appointment as
Tell
a
me.
director. Well, the first one was I had the great privilege of being flown to a conference in Minneapolis or Minnesota, somewhere in Minnesota, a little drive from Minneapolis. And I was paid for offering spiritual direction to some of the attendees. Okay. So I just want you to remember that I was flown and I was paid to do this. And my family, so my wife and my daughter, who was the baby at the time, also came with me. So we were in our hotel room, sorry, not our hotel room, our conference room in the afternoon prior to me starting some sessions of spiritual direction. And I had the great idea that I'd take a nap. And our daughter was like 1 year old, and so she was also napping or something. And she was with my wife in one bed, and I was in another bed. You know, that's just how the rooms were laid out, and that's how we decided to do things this afternoon. And I'm having a wonderful nap. I mean, it's just so refreshing and restful, and I'm feeling things hit me in the face. And I open my eyes, and I think it's like Cheerios or something. And my wife is mouthing because our daughter is asleep, so she can't talk loudly. She's saying, "It's time for your appointment." And she was right. Like, I had to be on the other side of the conference center in about 5 minutes to meet with somebody who'd signed up to sit with me for spiritual direction. And I was literally asleep 5 minutes before the time, getting Cheerios thrown in my face. And so I got out of bed as quickly and as quietly as possible, and I ran as fast as I could across the conference premises to this appointment. And as you can imagine, as I'm running, I'm thinking, how am I going to catch my breath and look like a centered, grounded spiritual director for this person who's signed up? Like, I'm going to run in sweaty and panting into this meeting. And
I'm sure you did fine.
The mercy of God was that this person was late, probably 5 minutes. So I get there probably 2 minutes after we're supposed to start. I drank some water. I caught my breath. And wouldn't you know, by the time they got in, they thought I was the most, placid, grounded director. And we had a great session. But little did they know, and little do people know what directors sometimes do or don't do before a session, right?
Well, I have a story. I don't remember all the details, but somebody had come to my office shortly before my appointment with a directee, and it was not a good meeting. It was very hurtful to me, and I was crying. How can I tell my directee not to come? She's like 5 minutes away.
Yeah.
So there I am, red eyes, runny nose, and she arrives. Fortunately, she was not a new directee, and she was not a person that was, really traumatized and coming for, a lot of healing. So I had to welcome her, and I had to tell her that I had an encounter that was very hurtful. I'm sorry, I'm not up to par, but if you want to continue, we'll go ahead.
That's right.
And And we did. And the Holy Spirit did show up.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, that was very humbling.
Mm-hmm.
Very humbling.
Well, you think that's humbling. Try waking up from a nap and charging, like a, I don't know,
Yeah,
crazy.
but at least you were early, and
I
you
was
had
paid.
time to, and you were paid, and you had time to calm yourself down.
Oh my goodness!
But,
yeah. Well, I was
yes.
prepared to
Anyway.
apologize and just to have, like you, to just have to say, I'm so sorry. Like, I was literally asleep a few minutes ago. That's why I'm sweaty. That's why I'm panting. Could we take a few moments just so I can gather myself?
Yes,
Right.
yes.
And I think this is good for people to hear because, yes, life is our preparation. And in an ideal world, we also have some good strategies of preparation before appointments, but sometimes life doesn't afford that.
Life just
right?
happens.
Yeah. And so too with directees.
Exactly.
Ideally, directees have examined their life over the past month. They've been prayerful, they've been diligent, they've been self-aware, and sometimes life happens and they just show up breathless, panting, sweaty, running, crying, whatever, and we receive them.
Yes. And I'm sure most people who have a director can relate to this, and most directors can too.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, well, in the last question here, there's more things that I'd like to say, but just in the interest of time here, how do appointments typically end? I mean, we've talked over the course of this season about what happens in spiritual direction and how we're listening and what we're listening for and what people can bring, what's spiritual, all that stuff. So we won't go into that, but practically speaking, how do spiritual direction appointments typically end? What happens at the conclusion?
Well, at the very end, there's sometimes, there's usually setting a date for another meeting. There's, wishing well, sometimes a hug. But prior to that, in the session itself, there's a slowing down. There's a sense of, I think we're concluding here. Or, there's a director might say, our time is coming to an end. Is there anything else you would like to bring up? Probably 5 or 10 minutes before, the end. And maybe a suggestion of something that they could think about or do, wishing them well. And sometimes directees want a prayer at the end. And I've done that with some, but not all directees.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if any directees wanted to. Usually the directee started with a prayer in the case of someone who did pray during the session. And I would end with the prayer. But that's kind of some of the things that would take place.
Yeah. These days, typically, one of my last questions for a directee is, what's staying with you from this time? I used to, in a very Jesuit or Ignatian way, used to always ask, what's your sense of God's invitation to you, given what you've shared, given what's clarified for you?
It's lovely.
Yeah, but I really like the what's staying with you. My previous director, Wilma, used to ask me that question. And I've thought about that, and I really like that because it seems more like sort of gathering the graces.
Yes.
An invitation for some people can feel like, okay, what do I have to do? What's the to-do list item or the action item, which is not how I mean invitation. But I think what's staying with you, or what does it seem God wants you to hold on to? That's often a final question. And then when they respond, after they've responded, yes, there is a little bit of a slowing. And these days I'll often pray for the directee, even though I said words are sometimes hard. I feel like after the session, having kind of bore witness to the work of God in their life and their response, now I have something to bless them with, or to pray for them in, to support them in. And so I found praying for them really meaningful at the end. And then, after the prayer, we'll be in touch. Good to hear you today and hope you have a good day. And that's it,
My director always ends with a blessing for me, in the form of a prayer. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so these guidelines that we've given, like, they're things for directors and directees to experiment with in a way. I love how you said, and I have said this to directees before, how would you like me to end? Would you like me to pray for you? Do you want to pray? Do you want to just have some silence? Do you want to just finish like that and just leave? Again, to empower them to decide, I think is great. And so I think directors and directees have the freedom in some ways to co-create the ending or the conclusion of a spiritual direction appointment as well as the beginning, you know?
Is something nice about having a pattern with a particular person.
Yeah.
And it's different with the next person.
That's right. Yeah. Well, how would you like to end this conversation, Mary?
I would like to say thank you for your insights and for your practice of spiritual direction, because I can tell if I was looking for one, I would want one just like you.
Oh, well, you know, I feel similarly to you because I begged and pleaded you to be my spiritual director for a long time and you kept deferring me.
Where were you when I wasn't so old?
I was younger. Well, thank you. I receive your very kind words and right back at you, Mary. I can tell from your practice, particularly how you took time to walk with a directee in the rain and the mosquitoes, and incurred your own suffering, as it were, to host them. I can tell you were a great director. You are a great director. So thank you for this conversation.
And thank you.